I'm so glad you all are here today, and I love seeing each and every one of you. This month, we really haven't been doing a series of sermons. They've just kind of been some different little standalone things, but there is kind of a theme, at least in my mind as I go through it, what God's been talking to me about, what God's been leading me to speak about. A couple weeks ago, we talked about the irredeemable, those people in our lives that we've always looked at and said, nothing's ever going to fix that person, and realizing that throughout history, God is continually to call people from that irredeemable world, people that we thought that were too far gone, in order to be some of his spokesmen, some of his leading spokesmen throughout history. Last week we talked about our call to be stretched, our responsibility to be people that are deep in the Word, and at the same time being able to communicate to the culture that we're in today. And so we've kind of talked about the lostness of people out there. We've talked about our responsibility into it, and today we're going to move maybe to the greatest responsibility in the whole thing. We're gonna talk a little bit about Jesus today, and some things about him that maybe we haven't really fleshed out. If we really are talking about those people that are irredeemable, that we talked about a couple weeks ago, when we think about those people that have done so many bad things, and then most of us eventually get to the point where, like, I've done some bad things in my life too, and we realize that to fix all those bad things, I mean, just to fix the bad things in my own life, would be a whole lifetime chore, trying to clean everything up and make everything right, and to imagine the billions and billions of people that have been affected by that stain of sin, the billions and billions of people that could be classified as irredeemable throughout history, and to realize that is something bigger than I think any of us have ever really sat down and contemplated how much of a mess has been out there in the world we've been in. And so I wanted to talk, well, what do we do about that? How do we handle something like that? How does that even exist in the world we live in, and how do we begin to even think about that from perspective of the Scriptures? And so today we're going to be talking about the Bible's solution, the plan. How do we even begin to fathom this idea of what to do about this irredeemable world, what to do about the problem of sin, what to do about so many of us that are broken and hurting and are messed up. I mean, we go and read the very first book of the Bible. We read in Genesis, and we just hear a story about how mankind rebelled against God, and in that process, the Bible says God put a curse on man, but really we cursed ourselves. When we got ourselves out of the plan of God, we put ourselves on a path that was not optimal for us, a path that was not going to lead to our perpetual joy, a path that was not going to lead to satisfaction in all things, a path that was going to lead to pain and destruction and decay and problems and all sorts of stuff. And so if that's our ultimate, if that's what happens when we have rejected and turned away from God, we realize that this is a global, universal problem. We've turned from him, and there's nothing you and I can do about that. And so today we're actually going to look at the last book of the Bible. Now, I haven't preached a lot out of Revelation, and I grew up in one of those churches where we preach out of Revelation every single week, and we were looking for dates and times and specifics. But I want to look at the book of Revelation because I think it's relevant for you and I today. The book of Revelation is dealing with a group of people that believe God wholeheartedly, but are believing God in a place that's tough to believe God. Whether you believe that was the time of the early church when the Roman Empire was conquering them, or if you believe it's a time in some distant future where dystopia has outlawed Christianity, whichever you believe, the reality is the book of Revelation is talking about a group of people that want to believe God, but are surrounded by people that are hostile to him. And it talks about how do we fit into and understand and relate to all those things. And so we're going to be in Revelation chapter 5 today. In Revelation chapter 5, and if you know Revelation, the very first couple of chapters of Revelation are actually letters written to churches. Some that you know because Paul visited them and Paul talked to them. Some are churches that were started that Paul necessarily wasn't writing about in the book of Acts. But Jesus is writing letters, so Jesus has a vision, comes to John, the Apostle John, has a vision that he sends to John, and says, write these letters to these churches. And they're letters of encouragement and letters of trying to spur them on to be better, and these letters are going out, and then all of a sudden we jump into this kind of mysterious part of Revelation where we're trying to figure out, what are we going to do in this world that's being corrupted? What are we going to do in these last times? How do we understand and deal with some of these things? And we get this image of God. The book of Revelation gives us this wonderful image of God and these people that are worshiping him in this place where he's sitting in heaven. And in Revelation chapter 5, we continue with God. It says, then I saw a scroll in the right hand of the one who was sitting on the throne. And there was writing on the inside and the outside of the scroll, and it was sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a strong angel who shouted with a loud voice, who is worthy to break the seals on the scroll and open it? But no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll and read it. I want you to think about that. God on his throne has written a scroll that has messages on it. It's so full, it says there's a message on the front and the back, and it's completely covered with a message of God. And it is sealed up right now, and he is saying, take this message and learn from it. Take this message and use it. Take this message and find truth and find hope and find salvation. All you have to do is open it up. And God puts his strongest angel in charge of it. And he can't open it up. And the angel goes throughout the world carrying this scroll, saying, who can open it up? And he checks everyone in heaven, and no one can open it up. And he checks everyone on earth, and there's none of us that are worthy to open it up. You're not worthy. I'm not worthy. People running governments and countries, and they're not worthy. Religious leaders and monks that sit on the top of mountains and have isolated themselves for a year to be pure, and they're not worthy. It says he goes into the grave, to the depths, to comb throughout history. Can we find somebody who has passed away that's living in Sheol? Can we find somebody that we can grab that would be worthy? And throughout all of history, the billions and billions and billions of people. And no one's found worthy to open up God's plan. Do you feel that way sometimes? That God's got a plan, but you just can't get to it? You look around and you think God's got something going on, but you just can't seem to grasp it. You just can't seem to unlock it, to open it up. God's got a plan, but you just, I don't know. I'm not strong enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough to figure it out. In our world today, and we're fixing to have another fun year coming up because it's about to be election time. I'm already seeing ads that are up there. And have you ever noticed our ads? There are always people trying to tell us how smart they are, how talented they are, how compassionate they are, how wealthy they are, how skilled, how this. All of the things that they have. They make this list of things. Look at me, look at all the things. But you know what? This scroll, the plan of God, couldn't be opened, not because they couldn't find somebody with enough skills, not because they couldn't find somebody with enough talent, with enough wealth, with enough smarts. There are the smart and the talented and the wealthy and the skilled and the more. couldn't open the scroll because they couldn't find anyone worthy. They couldn't find anybody worthy to open the scroll. Anybody that had worth. And man, that's a totally different thing. How would our politics change in our country if we elected people based on their worth? Are you worthy of that position that you're running for? Are you worthy of that job?